Hello you fine folks, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Emax BabyHawk R Pro 4. That's right, a 4-incher on this channel. We'll get into that a little later. Let's get started. Featuring Emax 1606 3300 kV motors, the new Mini Magnum 2 flight stack, which has an F4 flight controller with an OSD, and a 35 amp 32-bit ESC. We also have a 37-channel Vtx power switchable from 25 milliwatts to 200 milliwatts, Caddx Micro Turbo S1 FPV camera, new Scimitar AVAN props, 4x2.4x3 and 4x2.8x3. I'm flying the 2.4s. It weighs 165.5 grams. With the stock battery, it weighs 262 grams. Arms are 3mm thick. Very bottom plate looks to be 2mm thick. The top sandwich plate looks to be 2mm thick too. My calipers don't go out that far, but I think it's about 160mm. You get 6 of each prop. You get a short manual, but it pretty much breaks everything down. You get another manual on your S1 camera. You get some Emax stickers. You get a zip tie, some extra gummies, and various other screws and nuts. You also get an extra arm. We also have 2 35-volt 100 microfarad capacitors. We have a buzzer and 2 LEDs. You can see the Vtx display showing your band and your channel. If you're not familiar with the channel, I do mainly micros. Generally 3-inch prop or less. But I didn't know this was coming, and Emax does a pretty good job of keeping a secret. And this showed up, and I unwrapped it just like I would any other package. To my surprise, find a 4-incher in here. And at first I had quite a bit of trepidation because I really didn't think I would be able to fly it in the backyard. And I started thinking about my personal time constraints with a family and a job, not knowing if I'd have time to go find a space, because I did want to fly it. I mean, you want to fly everything you have, right? And I decided just to take the challenge, just to fly it in the space that I normally fly, do a review like I've been doing reviews for the last 3 years, and see what happens. Hopefully you approve. I took a number of different flights, and we're going to see 2 in this video, and it took me a little while to get comfortable with it, and you'll see some slop from time to time. And the second flight I'm going to show you because it has a dramatic ending, otherwise known as a crash. And that's important to the rest of the video. As you're watching the flight, take note of either the audible of me hitting it full throttle and flying over the house, or the throttle position in the top left-hand corner, because these punches are pretty short, and every once in a while I'll do one. I'll try to do it just a touch longer to give you a different sample of the thrust that you get out of this machine. I am running the 850 milliamp battery as prescribed by Emax. It's a 4S, and I can't say it's the default one on this particular flight because I had too many flights to tell. I've only got about 6 of those batteries that fit that spec. So when I would go out in flights, I didn't quite have as many packs as I could fly, so it tended to be the batteries at the end of the stack where I would actually probably have fetched this flight and the one we'd see afterwards. You know, you need a battery to warm up, and I seem to warm up pretty slow anyways. But the thing that impressed me the most about this is just how responsive that throttle was. It jumps into the air. And some of that could be the prop and the motor combination. And we probably also have a role in there with the 32-bit ESC that Emax has designed, because it's really responsive. If you're someone that's getting started in FPV, you could probably take this out and learn with it. But there is one factor that'll come up in the second flight that you need to be aware of. You probably want a bigger space than what I'm flying it in, a big open field, so you don't have to worry about risk of trees or canopy overhead and ballooning up and getting tangled up in the trees. But it's definitely well tuned. You've got no work to do there. You got 2 different PID profiles to use depending upon either the prop or the flight response that you want, how smooth or how responsive you want the sticks to feel when you're flying it around. So the team pilots, in my opinion, have done a nice job of tuning this thing up. And it is running Beta Flight 4. It's probably the first full release. It's not the release after 4.0.0. It may or may not be a release candidate. I can't say for certain. I have yet to learn the way that you have to, what command you may have to type into the CLI to figure out whether it was a release candidate. And I don't have the dates of when the release candidates came out versus the full-fledged version of Beta Flight 4. But as we come up to that shed, there's a couple times I get really close, and to my surprise, when I hit that throttle, it leaps into the air, and I didn't have a crash, and a number of close calls, in my opinion, with that. I also thought it really held nicely in the curves, that I didn't have to really jam the throttle. It's just so responsive, and the thrust to weight ratio on it was real nice, and I think that just made it really easy for me to fly it. In this flight, I could chop it to the end, but I think I fly a little bit more aggressively in this particular flight, so I wanted to show this to you as well. As you kind of get used to things, as I said in the first flight video, you kind of start to get adjusted. Being a review channel, you fly a lot of different things. On any given day, you might fly, or at least I might fly, 2 or 3 different quads. So sometimes the packs that come late in the flight for that particular quad will be better than the flights earlier. This one, I do think I'm flying a little bit more aggressively. You can see how sharply it's tuned, and you can see all the torque and the prop. You can hear it. I like to include audio so that you guys can hear, you know what you're getting into, and how much noise it creates with a particular prop and motor combination. And we get a few more chances to listen to that burst over the house. And you can see a number of times I overshoot it because I'm just not used to this much thrust. It was a lot of fun and challenging to fly. And as we get a little bit deeper into this flight, if you find that you like this video and you like the way I do reviews, I'd sure appreciate a thumbs up. I'm told I do not ask for thumbs up and subs nearly as much, and that I should have more likes or thumbs up, and I should have more subs. So I thought I would take these extra moment within this flight. If you share this video, I'd also appreciate it. But a thumbs up or a like and a sub would be nice if you enjoy the videos. Look around the channel. You know, this is pretty rare for me to do a larger propped quad. It's usually 3 inches or less, as I said. But I enjoyed myself, and I think that Emax does a really good job of keeping a secret, because I didn't even know this thing was coming. And it was pretty surprising to unbox it, but I sure enjoyed flying it. I enjoyed the challenge of trying to manage it in my space, and after a number of flights I decided I think it was good for me to try this, because then I have something to go back and compare it to when I'm flying smaller quads. So oftentimes people don't get into micros because they get stuck on 5-inchers, or I shouldn't say stuck. They want the GoPro on there, and I get that. And the Turtle makes things a little bit more bearable for those folks, or the Run Cam Split or the Foxair Mix. But it's still not quite the same. We're also seeing the Tarsier, and the Tarsier FPV camera is supposed to be better, but we'll have to see how that goes. I haven't seen it yet, but I do really like this camera. I don't think it comes out in DVR how good this camera is. I think Emax has probably gone through the settings of the camera and customized them, but I really felt like this, I know this is a Caddx camera, but it really felt like the colorization and the sharpness of a run cam camera. I haven't used many of those recently because Caddx have been coming on a lot of products, and I've bought a lot of Caddx cameras in the past. But look around. Something that Caddx is usually at fault for is leaving a little dust or dirt either on the sensor or on the lens. But I don't see it on mine. Now, maybe it's already come loose, or it moved around, or maybe Emax has held Caddx to a higher quality standard, and they've produced a series of cameras for this quad that aren't plagued with that dust or dirt problem under the lens. I don't see it. I've looked at this video a number of times, and I just don't see it. Jeez, oh Pete. Well, let's go see if it's all right. So the first thing we need to talk about after all this is the crash. So I've got my arm out, and you can see it's broken here, and those that are into carbon fiber will want to get a close look at this, where it broke, how it broke. Whether you approve or not, that's up to you. Yeah, it was pretty hosed. Might be fixable, though. I hear some of you use super glue and a vise. Also the props. This is a rear prop, got kind of wanged there. The front prop got really wanged. He went ahead and turned it up. I suspect we could... Jeez, oh Pete, these props are super stiff. I must have hit that pretty hard. I don't know. It's got a pretty heavy crease in it. I wouldn't fly with that, but you might feel differently. Let's move on. So as far as the design, there's going to be a lot of look and feel to this. You see they put that print on there, and I get a feeling this is a print. I thought I saw what looked like an LED on here somewhere, like a number 8. So I'm wondering if they used a component, a screen print from a component like the Vtx, and they printed it on here. I'm not certain, but I think I saw that. Maybe it was on the broken arm where I saw that 8. It could be all wet. I can't find it now, but I thought I saw it on there earlier. So you may or may not like that. It's really up to you. But let's take a look at the bottom. This strap is too long. It is a nice strap. You can see it's got a little bit of silicone on there. Let me undo it. It's just too big. Let me show you. So if I use the stock battery as an example, and I'm going to go ahead and leave this rolling so you can see, and there's no trickeration or video editing going on. I'll get through there. I gotta navigate this to get it tight. See how far down this strap goes? See, this is the part, the loop that goes onto the felt there. So we've only got about a 1/2 to 3/4 inch. Now you get a little bit more. What I would do is I would tuck my wires into the area where the strap would go to kind of bulk that inner area up. Also, I did run these ready-made RC 850s, and that was the flight that you saw, the long flight. The flight that was shortened due to the crash was on the Emax flight. This battery is a bit bigger. It's 2 grams heavier than the Emax as well. I won't say this is a great battery, but it was I think I have 4 of these, and then I have random other 850s, and I thought these performed the best of the random others. But I think this strap is too long, and I'm not a fan either of the fact that if we look real close, see how the battery's wider than the slots that we've got down there? I don't have a lot of confidence that our battery is going to stay, but you know, I did have a pretty decent crash, and the battery didn't move to my eyes. I didn't see it move at all, so I could be all wet in my concerns there, but it was something I noticed right away, and I thought I would share it with you because the straps do come out through here, and we can't change that because we have these capacitors. So those capacitors come through that bottom plate down here, so there's no running a strap through between the two sandwich plates. It's just not going to happen. Whether or not you feel that's appropriate or not, you have to make that judgment for yourself. It doesn't bother me. The only concern I have is that the top plate might be a touch weaker because it is carved out of the top plate as well. So we have one side of the sandwich plate where the capacitors are that has a little less material. They did bring it out to maybe compensate for that. If you can see the difference there. We do have the battery pad on here, and it's not like a piece of foam. This is actually like rubber. There is some stickiness to it. It's not like Uma grip or anything, but this should help your battery stay in place. Also, all the screws in the bottom plate are recessed, so you shouldn't have any problems with your battery hitting those. I'm not much of a fan of the battery lead coming off the side. We can, and what I would suggest doing is zip tying it to, with a little bit of slack, zip tying it to an arm, maybe back here like this. With a little bit of slack. You can't see it because the prop's in the way. Let me flip it over so you see what I'm talking about. So this is what I would do, is something like this. If this were mine, I would keep it on here like this. That gives me some confidence that if I do tug on the battery or I have a battery ejection, that I won't be pulling the pads off the ESC. Because you pull the pads off, that's a whole different kind of repair. Some people will do it, some people won't. Emax has used some of their magic tape that we've been looking for a while, and it seems to be sticking on there pretty good. I thought I did see, it's a little tiny thing, one of these edges did come off or come up. But I still like the tape. I like the look and the feel of it. It applies pretty reasonable. We do have one little bit out here I'm a little bit curious about. There's nothing here, but there obviously, it was designed for something, because why else would you have the top plate bump out and this little slot carved in it? I just don't understand what that's for. Maybe you guys can hypothesize what that might be. Also, these screws seem to be inlaid into the carbon fiber, because if you take these screws out, which I had to do to replace the front arm, then this nut or this security piece here does not come out. It stays right with the carbon piece. You can see what I did with my antennas here, just a zip tie through those 2 holes, heat shrink, free and easy, stays in there pretty good. Then I just ran my RC Link antenna up through here. Not ideal, but you know, if you're going for real long range, you're probably going to be putting in a separate receiver anyways. You can also see the button, which is right down there. I'll show you the white side of it for the VTX. The instructions lay out how you would, can you see the button right there? The white part right at the end of my screwdriver, that's the button. So you press and hold that button, you plug in your battery, and then the LED right there displays you're unlocked, unplugged, you're all done. Pretty straightforward. Same thing with binding. Press down the button, plug in, and then bind on the radio, and you're all set. It comes pre-tuned with 2 profiles, and I use profile 2 because that felt better to me. Note again, I did use the 4 by 2.4 by 3 props, which are the props you see in front of you, but if I were to just show in video the props that it also comes with, you probably couldn't tell a difference. So let's do a closer investigation there. So I've got a little flashlight out in hopes that you can see that 2.8 right there. That's how you tell the difference of the prop. It's only printed right there. There might be another spot, but I couldn't find anything. And with my eyes and even my glasses, that was really hard to make out. And if you look at a prop after you've put it on, it's right here, but I can barely see it because it gets kind of mashed down, I think. See if I can get, sorry, my flashlights, there we go. Can you see that? It says 2.4. So the 2.4 props were the ones I was flying in that video, if anyone's curious. I really enjoyed this camera. I probably said that a couple of times during the flight video as well. This camera doesn't have the traditional Cadix red hue to it, and Emax may have tweaked out the settings in order to make it so nice, but I really thought it reminded me a lot, honestly, of the old original run cams as far as the coloration goes, and I thought it was nice and sharp. It just felt like a pretty good camera. Light handling seemed really good to me. I didn't have any problems with that. So this is a camera that I really enjoyed, and I don't oftentimes talk about cameras because I don't think my vision or my view of cameras is all that sensitive, but I did enjoy this one quite a bit. You may not be able to see it. Let me see if I can zoom in and get enough light down in there. Yeah, I don't think it's going to show up. But underneath the ESC is a nylon nut, and then there's a rubber grommet here in the top of the carbon plate. So getting your ESC in contact, which was something some people had on the original BabyHawk, the smaller version, was a little bit of an issue. We shouldn't see that here because we've got that nylon nut that's already on the bottom, and as far as I can tell, it doesn't look like there's anything on the bottom side of the ESC that is thicker than that nut. So even if that grommet were to get pushed through, we should be safe from any sort of ESC touching carbon fiber, getting grounded and blowing up problems. But of course, many people will be testing this in the future. I could be proven wrong, but my initial impression is that shouldn't be an issue. I understand the design concept of the canopy, but I kind of inside on this particular version because of its power and size. I wish that there was a second canopy that Emax would sell, something that was a bit flat up here, so that you could mount a GoPro either natively with a strap, or that you could put another 3D printed design mount right up here. It just feels like people are going to want that. But I could be wrong. You tell me, am I just all wet? Do people just want to race this style of quad, or are people wanting to get GoPro footage, HD footage as well, or other action cameras? It seems like this is a pretty good area to have something built in. You could also, with some interesting design elements, maybe work it into the bottom half of that mount, end up being a little bit of extra camera protection. So if you're a hardcore racer flying at almost 90 degrees, that if you have a direct hit with a flag or a gate or something, that maybe it would protect the camera in totally, you know, with a little piece of coming across up here, a little ledge for an action camera. Just spitballing there, it's just a thought. You know, as I flew this around, I thought a lot about the extra weight that this could carry, and that was one of the things that came to mind, was a secondary canopy, which would be pretty easy to switch out, provided you don't do this with your antenna and you did something else. Also, I have a few concerns about these wires. I don't think they're going to come in contact, but be sure that you've got good tape and it's sticking the wires down. And, you know, as we pull these things around, if I try to pull my screwdriver out, you know, could it come in contact? Yeah, but I'm tugging on those wires. That's not really fair. So if the wires were a bit shorter, I sure wouldn't yell at Emax for it. It seems like that they left enough there for some other reason, but we've seen them do that on other versions of their BabyHawks to, you know, incorporate longer arms or something of that nature, and maybe they have something planned, but it doesn't seem like this motor would be incorporated into a larger prop, because it probably would be over-propped at that point. So a little shorter wires all the way around, and I would appreciate that. It would give me a little more peace of mind that no props are going to be chopping up the motor wires, because they're sure enough flying when that happens. We do have some LEDs. You can see the white sides of them right there, right between the prop and the canopy. They do light up and they kind of flash back and forth when you're flying around, so that's kind of a neat little thing. I do think they're only white LEDs. I didn't notice any other color, so you got what you got there. The VTX is using an MMCX connector, so that may be something that you want to know about. And the receiver is just mounted down below here with a little bit of foam tape. I'm poking the foam tape right there. So there it is, the Emax BabyHawk R Pro 4. It was an interesting challenge for me to fly something this powerful in my little space. I appreciate Emax thinking of me. I didn't know this was going to be a cent, and when I got it out of the box, as I said previously, I was pretty concerned I wouldn't be able to handle it. But depending upon where you're at in your FPV journey, maybe you can. And what do you think? What do you think? Is this an untapped market Emax has found? Is this just something that we pass by for good reason? Leave your thoughts and comments down below about what you think about this machine and the general category. Should we see more of these, or should we just let it be? If you have any other comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thank you for watching.